You are now listening to Femme Regard Podcast with Tessa Markle
and Carolina Alvarez.
Femme. Welcome back, Femme Fam. Thank you, as always, for listening. We have another fantastic guest for you today. This guest we found through Instagram, which we tell you guys all the time. Like, it is such a good resource. You know, you think it's just for fun or building a following or whatever, but like, it is such a great resource to network and to find people to work with, and in our case, to bring on to the show. So, Carolina, Would you like to introduce him?
Yeah, today we have David Procter. He's a director of photography based in London and in LA. He has also experienced working in different countries, which I'm so excited to hear more about, how he's got to work in Europe, Africa, Asia. And then as well about him, he has recently filmed Make Me Famous, was his latest project that is out on BBC. He's filmed The Innocents on Netflix, worked on that, and currently working on Disney's Black Beauty, which I love horses, so that's so exciting. So David, welcome on. How's it going?
Hi, thanks for having me. All good, thank you. All going well.
Good. So you're from the UK for sure. That's where you were born, raised, grew up?
Yes, that's right.
That's right. Amazing. And is that where you first fell in love with film? Like, did you go to film school? Tell our audience, how did you get started?
I went to art college because I knew I wanted to do something creative, but I didn't know what exactly that would be. My education was fairly academic, so I didn't know that you could work in the film industry. I know that sounds crazy, but it just wasn't something on the table. It wasn't. It didn't feel like a reality or even an option to pursue. So through art college, I discovered 35mm photography, and that led to shooting videos and short films. And quickly, as soon as I experienced that world, I knew that was me. I knew I had to pursue that. I couldn't believe that could be a job. I couldn't believe that was something I could actually pursue as a career. Yeah. So I then went to three-year BA, and then I studied 35mm, 16mm through National Film School in the UK. But I didn't do an MA. I went straight into documentary. Mm-hmm. I didn't have any contacts at all. As I said, I didn't have any exposure to the industry. So I basically fought my way in. I clawed my way in London. It was tough with sort of no contacts. But I started building relationships with rental companies, shooting documentaries, shooting short films, traveling to film festivals to meet directors. And by doing so, just built up a network of people who I sort of began my journey with, through my career. So, I attached myself to directors who I'd do their short films. And then when they did commercials, hopefully they'd give me a call, that kind of thing. So building those relationships and also building relationships with a rental company was really good for me to utilize the equipment they had, learn the equipment and utilize the equipment. I did AC for a period, but I was a terrible AC and that was never going to work out. So I stuck more to operating in documentary in terms of my on-set experience in the early days. And it just kind of grew from there.
Nice. That's really inspiring to hear, like, you didn't know anyone. You just started straight from school with, no real experience, just knowing what you were doing from the training in school. But yeah, to really, get to where you are today just by meeting people and just snowballing it from there, building your network. And that's great. I mean, it's inspiring to hear that does work.
Yeah, it does. I had to be extremely proactive to make it work. I quickly realized that the film festival circuit in Europe was, Europe's very small in scale, really, and you can get around very cheaply with all the budget airlines. So I quickly realized where I could, I'd get myself to film festivals, and often they would then put you up, and they'd put you up, they'd feed you, they'd give you drinks. Like, all I really was sort of put out cost-wise was a budget airline flight to Romania, to Italy, to France, wherever it might be. And I started meeting directors. And I think the most pivotal festival for me in terms of relationships was Camera Image Festival for the Art of Cinematography, which I've been to now 10 times over the years. And that was an amazing place to meet, camera companies, lens companies, lighting companies, as well as their distributors and all the rental companies. And you start to build relationships, and you quickly realize that, everyone wants to support you on your journey, and everyone wants to be part of that journey. So, I think utilizing those things, I made amazing relationships, which, some of my longest relationships are people I met at my first years at festivals.
Nice.
That is so cool. You wouldn't just stick it like to film festivals in London. You would start to travel around to different countries. And is that how you started getting jobs in like these other countries, was networking with the directors from a specific country and they'd fly you out? How did you start to migrate over?
Yeah, I mean, that's partly it, really. I mean, what's interesting about film festivals as a cinematographer is you don't get many cinematographers at festivals. You find that festivals are absolutely full of producers and of directors. So it's a great place to be as a cinematographer, because you're like this kind of, bachelor wandering around with business cards. I'll shoot your film, and there's no competition really there. So it's a really great way to meet creatives and future collaborators, hopefully, but also you're in a position where you can say, look, my film's screening on Tuesday night, come along. Or my film screening on Sunday afternoon, come along, and they can see your work firsthand. You can meet people, you can click or not. You see who you really want to work with. And I mean, yeah, it was pivotal for me. So I met a number of key directors in my career through film festivals, and exactly that. You start to build relationships with directors in Portugal, directors in Bulgaria, all of these different places, and also just because you're in a festival in Bulgaria doesn't mean you're just meeting Bulgarian directors. There's obviously directors there from all over the world. So I'll meet American directors, I'll meet Japanese directors. And yeah, you're just starting to build those relationships. And then one day, hopefully they give you a call and they say, hey, you want to come and shoot a film in wherever, in Latvia, let's go. It's like,
Where? What's that? Okay, awesome. I'm in. No, that I love that you said that. I find that too, as a producer, director, like where the position Tess and I are in, we always want to meet more cinematographers, director photographers. Like, we want to meet you guys. So come to those festivals, like, please, more of you, because you're right. And you're like, no, less competition. But no, like, literally, that's how you got your start. And I feel like it's really important. I wish more people knew that, because those are the people that we constantly are looking to meet more of, and to create those relationships. So that's really cool that you were smart enough to like hustle and get in there, be proactive, and like make those connections.
Yeah, because it's kind of the thing, like out here in LA, there's a lot of people work in film, right? But there's so many actors specifically. And so, when you go to like industry networking events, it's tons of actors just meeting other actors. And it's like, they're not going to be able to help each other out really if they're just actors, and and you want to meet people that are doing what you can't do. So it's good advice, listeners, if you yourself are a cinematographer or basically anything besides an actor and like producer, please go to these festivals. Like, people are dying to meet you, and you will have a leg up on the people that aren't going to them.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I mean, I must say as well, you can do it cheaply. My early days in London, like I said, I didn't have contacts. I didn't have financial backing. I didn't have anything. So, I was selling coffee machines on the side to pay the bills while I was kind of chipping away, trying to get, 1 or 2 days on set each month, or whatever I could get, just trying to survive. And if I could get the money together, I'd get a cheap flight. I'd fly to Italy. I'd go to a festival. I'd come back. I'd do whatever I could just to claw my way in. And it's you can do it. It's just, you've got to be, relentless with it, I think.
So inspiring. I love that. Yeah, I love the visual of clawing your way in it. But like, that's the hunger you need to have, and like the drive to like really put yourself out there too. Because it's also not just showing up to the festivals, but actually showing up, trying to talk to people. Like, did you find that was something that came to you naturally, or something that you had to like work at becoming better at? Everyone talks about networking as like, like some people just like, it's not always our favorite thing. So how did you get like really good at that?
I would say it is something you just get better at by forcing yourself to do. I don't think it was something that came naturally at the beginning. Walking into a room of 400 people, not knowing a single person. But you start doing it, and you realize a lot of the people at festivals are also there alone, or are there with one other person, and everyone's there for the same reason. They're there to meet, they're there to network, they're there to have the conversations that you want to have. So I think the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. But there is always an element of nerves, getting on a plane, flying to, a film festival in a country you've never been to before without a single person you never really know how that's going to be. But yeah, I think...
But that's kind of the beauty of it. It's like, maybe everyone, like you said, like maybe everyone's in that same boat, like feeling the same way. Like it's all like this new discovery of like film, culture, people, right?
Oh, totally. I mean, I met a director called Simon Ellis, who's a fantastic UK director. I met him at a film festival in Romania in a bar. I knew his work already. I loved his work. And finally I met him, and we sort of had a few drinks. We got to know each other, ended up spending a fair bit of time that week talking. Anyway, we've been working together for the last 10 years. And then also, I then went to another film festival in Hamburg with a film I'd then done with Simon. So in the years after that experience, I'm at Hamburg Film Festival with Simon. He introduces me to a producer called Sam Haley. Sam Haley ended up introducing me to Dwayne Hopkins. I shot my first feature film, Bypass, with that director and that producer. Sam then went on to produce the second feature that I shot. So these are all relationships that, had I not put myself out there, which would never have happened. So it's something I felt I had to do. Without those connections in the first place.
Yeah. Oh, that's so amazing. I love hearing that. It's really inspiring.
And as a reference point for our listeners, I mean, you have a show on BBC Three and Netflix, and like, these relationships have gotten you to a point of real success. It's not just that you're working and paying the bills. Like, you're doing some really cool things.
You're doing some cool shit, David. You're doing some cool shit. You're also represented by the Worldwide Production Agency, which coming as an actor first, like I thought really only actors, writers, directors had agents, but what is the WPA, and is that something that's helped your career out? And I'm just fascinated by like what that experience and having someone like that to represent you has been for you, for other DPs out there too. What can we learn about it?
So a relationship with an agent is integral to success as a cinematographer, really. I've been with WPA for, I believe it's 5-6 years now, in the US and internationally. And then I'm with another agent in Europe called Wizzo & Co. And
I saw that too, yes.
I've been with them for 10 years now. So that relationship is absolutely integral, because much like an actor picking your roles, as a cinematographer, there's a lot of that side to it too, as well, in choosing the right projects, because the type of work you do, it generally breeds more of the same type of work. Mm-hmm. So an agent can be really integral in managing your reputation and helping you make the correct choices, or the best choices for your career and the direction and the way you're steering it. I'm not always particularly aware of my reputation, let's say, but my agents will say to me, hey, you've shot a few too many car commercials lately. You're becoming the car guy, and we need to rein that in a little. Let's get you on some more drama stuff. Let's get you on some more, traveling jobs, and more food, more human, more beauty, because it's all getting a bit too car heavy. And then it pushes the other way, and suddenly it's like you're not getting as many commercials. You've been doing loads of drama work, and it's really good having someone else to help you make those decisions, because when you're presented with multiple scripts and directors and what you're going to do next as your next project is the same with acting. Making the decision of what to do, which is going to be good. The script might be great, the director might be great. You don't know that the film's going to be great. There's so many variables. So for me, my agents, I've got an amazing relationship, amazing friendship with my agents at WPA and at Wizzo. And they're there to really help guide me and discuss every project that I take. Even if it's a 2-day commercial in Brazil, there will still be a lot of conversation around whether I do or do not do that. So it's been great for that.
Yeah.
No, well said. To put that into perspective, like it's just, yeah, it sounds just as important as for an actor as it is for a cinematographer DP to choose that. And that's, I did not know. I didn't
either, honestly. And I think
like,
if you're not personally a cinematographer or the person hiring a cinematographer, I don't think that we always think about, like you said, if you're doing too many of the same thing, you get that reputation, because we think of that as an actor because everybody sees what that actor is doing. If you're not necessarily researching who the DP was on a project, you might not be aware of that. But yeah, that totally makes sense, in the same way that you're going to build a reputation doing what you do all the time. So if you don't want to be known as the car guy or, the drama guy or whatever, yeah, you got to make sure you're doing all kinds of different things. And then now you also spend a lot of time in LA now as well, right?
Yes.
So did a specific project bring you over here? Was it just spreading your wings? How did you make your way over here?
Well, it was after my first feature film, Bypass, was when I was offered representation internationally via WPA. And, then they helped organize the visa, and that kind of opened me up to the US market. So it wasn't project specific, but what that enabled was that I was then able to shoot commercials, music videos in the US, whether they were for European directors traveling over or for US directors. So it just kind of opened that whole market. So I started basing out of LA for periods each year and working with directors out there. That said, I think, as is often the case, most London shoots, most LA shoots, you end up not even shooting in LA or London. You end up traveling to Canada or traveling to Mexico, wherever it might be. So it just acted as another base for me. And it was great to sort of build relationships out there with crew, with directors, both professionally and making friends out there, building a sort of second home. So.
Aw, yeah. Do you like the LA community out here?
I do. I love it. It's always amazing when I'm over there, just catching up with everybody that lives there, people I don't see. And it's amazing. Every time I'm there, it is like my second home. And I go and I think, I'll be back in a few weeks. And sometimes I'm not back for 9 months or a year. You never really know.
Yeah.
And sometimes I really am just away for a week or two. It's a very unpredictable life as a cinematographer.
So it sounds like you are very well-rounded in what you shoot, because we were talking about not pigeonholing yourself into one project, but is there a genre or style that you do feel like you do the best and you just love to, like, if there was one thing you could shoot all the time, this would be it?
Well, no. Actually, I don't think so. I love the vibe. I love the variety. I love the diversity of challenges and the diversity of projects. I think the core thing that pulled me into filmmaking in the first place is sort of emotive human drama. So I like issues-based films. I like social and political commentary. And I think it's the power of film as a medium that drew me in the first place. That was the allure of cinema. So certainly I'm most content when I'm shooting content that really has purpose beyond entertainment, something that transcends entertainment into political and social commentary. That for me is what gets me excited. But at the same time, I love the challenge of the impossibility of challenges sometimes that I'm faced with in commercials, of shooting high-end car commercials and perfume ads and whiskey ads, this kind of thing. I kind of love that. And I like the diversity of photographic challenge between those things. And for me, it keeps it interesting. It keeps me fresh. And I feel that every different subgenre of cinematography, whether you're shooting liquids, whether you're shooting beauty, whether it's macro, whether it's high speed, whether it's aerial, whether it's underwater, there's so many sort of subgenres of cinematography. For me, the more you learn about each one, the more you're learning about light, textures, and sort of storytelling as a whole. So I find that all of those different experiences help me. So, for example, Black Beauty that I've just obviously wrapped in New York and South Africa, I was drawing on so much knowledge from shooting cars when I was shooting, a wet black horse at night, and the textures of the horse's coat, and the fact that my lead actor is essentially a horse. And you're drawing on the knowledge of the way I've lit and shaped cars and products and hi-fis and whatever it might be along my career. You're pulling in knowledge from all of those things that you've done. And so I don't feel that there's never a shoot I've done where I haven't learned something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're always learning, and any project I take, I'll be looking for something. You know, what am I going to learn? How am I going to learn? And you're just learning every time you look through a lens anyway. I mean, everything's a new experience.
That's so cool. That's something I wouldn't have even thought of.
Yeah. Because like you think that you have to maybe be an expert in just shooting one thing to be really good, but it sounds like you're really smart about taking different elements from each shoot to be more experienced for the next shoot in a way that actually serves you more, is what it sounds like, to be able to have worked on many different kinds of settings and shoots.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's how I feel about it. I mean,
Yeah.
I think there's many schools of thought around that.
Yeah.
But for me, like I said, and you've just sort of concluded, is that idea that all of these different styles and techniques of photography, they all lend to each other. They all
in a way,
influence each other. So yeah, rather than feeling like I'm a jack of all trades, because I feel like you can become that if you are maybe trying to be a cinematographer and an actor and an editor and a writer. You know, I think you're doing very, very different things. But I think within the subgenres of photography, I think they can all lend and they can all help. And it just puts you in a situation where you never really know what your next script is going to include. You know, if you're shooting a raw sort of period drama, or whether you're shooting a high concept sci-fi piece, the photographic skills needed for those things are extremely different.
Right.
So if you've got some experience in all of those different approaches, you can sort of draw on that knowledge. That's just my thoughts.
No, I love that. Thank you. For your,
go ahead.
Sorry, I'm curious about you said your film Bypass was the one that kind of got you picked up from WPA and
Yes.
like hooked it all up. And that was your film? Like, did you write it or produce it?
No. I'm always just a cinematographer.
Always a cinematographer. Okay. I was just curious if you did dabble in the other jacks of trades here.
No. So
No,
I didn't. But it was a wonderful first feature for me, directed by Dwayne Hopkins, and the lead was George Mackay, who's now very famous from being the lead in 1917. So he's fantastic, and it was an amazing journey. It was a very creative film. It was a very unusually creative film, I think. Visually, we really experimented, and we were very lucky. We premiered at Venice Film Festival in competition, and it sort of went on its journey. So it was an amazing experience from start to finish.
Going back to when you first started, you said documentaries were kind of the first thing you did. I've been noticing a lot, because I listen to a lot of other film podcasts as well, and I've been noticing a lot of people kind of got their start in documentaries. Did that just kind of happen because that was the people you knew at the time, or is there a reason for that? Because I mean, in my mind, I feel like narratives and docs are so like completely different worlds. And I guess they really don't have to be. That's just always kind of how I've looked at it. So I was surprised to hear so many people starting out in that area.
No, you're right. There's some very famous cinematographers began in documentary. Sean Bobbitt, Phil Mayhew, Barry Ackroyd. These are all huge names in the cinematography world who started out shooting documentaries and shooting news coverage. And I think for me what it was is being the original allure of cinema and filmmaking, being that kind of visceral storytelling and human dramas. I realized that by shooting documentaries in the early days, I didn't need this kind of wealth of knowledge of lighting and photographic techniques to be able to tell a simple story. I knew that if I had a lens, if I had a camera, I could capture stories that were happening in a very natural way. I could work with very minimal lighting. I could work with a lot of natural light, and I could learn in that way. And also to tell stories that just could still have the same power of the kind of films that I aspired to make decades later in my career. So it was, I think it was that for me. It was that ability to be able to immediately tell visceral and important stories. True stories, I think, is something else that I've always been drawn to. I love, there's something different when I watch a film that is based on a true story. It always grabs me in a much more powerful way. I always feel much more affected by those films. And again, documentary is real by its very nature. So that's another kind of side of things.
Yeah. Is there anything that you haven't done that you would like to do? Any sort of genre or type of film?
Ooh. I think it would be very fun at some point to shoot a horror,
Nice.
really sort of intense psychological horror.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not so interested in kind of just jump scares. I would be interested in doing something that's really kind of disturbing, something that gets under your skin. I think that'd be something interesting to do. Other than that, no, I'm fairly content with the way sort of things are flowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you might have said this, I can't remember, but how long ago did you first start? Like, how long has this journey been for you?
So I graduated in 2006.
Okay.
So yeah, 14 years ago.
Yeah.
Not knowing a single person in the industry.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'd say the first 4 years were the most brutal. I think, you know, you do need luck. You do need a lot of luck in the industry to really make it. There's so much talent out there. But at the same time, it's up to you how many times you're giving yourself the opportunity to be lucky.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like if you just keep putting yourself out there, it's like if you buy 1,000 lottery tickets, you've got 1,000 chances of winning instead of just one. You know, it's like you're just multiplying your options. So I just put myself out there. And I think for every success I've had, there's been 10, 20, 30, 50 failures. And I think that's always the way. And I think I expect that to continue for the rest of my career.
Yeah.
I think that's the reality of the film industry. It's very easy, I think, to look from the outside at anyone else's career in the industry and think, oh, it's all just fallen on a plate for them. Look, they've just gone from this to this to this. You don't see the reality of it. You see the kind of the Instagram shop window. You see this perfect facade of life. But the reality is, you know, there's a lot of kicking. There's a lot of kicking in the beginning and throughout, you know. I mean, in my early days, I was rejected from NFTS in the UK, which is like kind of our most prestigious film school here. I was rejected twice, 2 consecutive years. And at that stage, with knowing nobody, kind of clawing my way around, trying to get in, I thought that was my only way. I thought if I can get this level of training from one of the best film schools in the world, that's going to be this kind of foundation for my career. And it wasn't meant to be, but you have to deal with those things. And what it did teach me is that everyone has a different path. And if anything, it spurred me on. It's like, well, I'm going to make this. I'm going to do this no matter what. But it is hard because you feel like, you know, that feeling of failure, that feeling of not being good enough, like not even getting in the door. It's not like I was accepted, I did the course, I graduated, and then I didn't make it as a cinematographer. It's like I wasn't even allowed to train there. So it's an interesting lesson in the very beginning of you know, the brutality of the industry. You just got to keep fighting and keep pushing, and you'll find your own way.
Yeah, thank you for being honest with that.
No, you're welcome. I didn't used to be, but I found like I don't see. I think it probably is a good thing to share.
I think so too, because like there's so many people put in that same position where they don't get accepted to the acting school or the whatever workshop. It could be like multiple scenarios where you judge yourself. Am I even like talented? Can I even like, do I have anything to offer here? Because you feel so shut down. Like the fact that you said you did that twice, like, oh my gosh, I think I might have just stopped the first time. Like you went back and still tried, like, and that's really hard for a person's sometimes overall ego and how to even like just mentally work through that sometimes when you are so set on a path too. Like you clearly, like from the start, like you said, once you held that camera and found that medium that you wanted to like live in it. But I think that's also probably what pushed you through those kind of battles of like, okay, can I do this? Can I actually do this? So what are like the positive things you think that kind of helped keep propelling you through those hard times?
That's interesting. I mean, what picks you back up?
Yes,
for me,
exactly.
I always had this relentless determination. I always wanted just to keep pushing. I knew that I believed in what I was doing. I believed in the people I was working with, the directors I was working with, the projects I had lined up. There was always something to look forward to. There was always something to push. And I always felt that having always focusing on the next challenge, the next project, always gave me something to sort of fight towards. Setting yourself goals, I think, is very important, but I think it's important to keep those goals realistic. I remember being at film school and I heard people saying, I want to shoot my first feature film by the time I'm 25. And I want to do my, by the time I'm 30, I want to have whatever it might be. They're just fantastical kind of goals, which are great. But I was a little bit more realistic about mine. I did say to myself, I'd like to shoot my first feature by the time I'm 30. And that did happen. But I remember, being 28, 29, I was thinking I had opportunities. I had other opportunities, but I think they weren't right. And I was never going to sort of choose the wrong project based on a sort of goal. And I think that's important as well, choosing the right projects. And I touched on that earlier with your agents, but just having the right gut feeling about every project, because it lives with you and you put so much emotionally into a long form project. Particularly, you want to make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons and that you believe in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Not to mention just the hours and hours and hours that you're on set. You better believe in this project or else it's going to be miserable. So,
because especially it doesn't just end right at when you film it on set too. It's something that there's the whole pre-production, the whole post-production. You got to live and breathe that project for a feature, especially. So that's something that I think is, it's a wise thing to do. Really feel like also inside you listen to your gut and know if that's something that you want to put yourself through. Cause you do put yourself through the ringer, but it's beautiful. You go at the end, you create something, you're like, I did that. And it's a great feeling, but it's a lot that goes behind the scenes. Right.
Yeah. Well, David, tell our listeners where they can see your work and follow your journey, any social media handles you want to share, all that sort of stuff.
I'm pretty active on Instagram under the handle David Procter DoP, which is also my handle on Twitter. And my website is davidprocterdop.com. So between those, I keep those fairly up to date. With what I'm doing behind the scenes when I'm shooting and new work as it's released. So it's obviously been a little quiet lately. There's not been a whole lot of production this year. We all know why. So but that's kind of the best way to sort of see what I'm up to. And
we love your gram. It looks great. So everyone follow him. It's great.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, as I travel, I tend to be more active when I'm actually out traveling a lot and shooting more. I keep it fairly up to date with stories and things like that. So it's quite fun.
Yay. Yeah. Well, looking forward to those days because, we'll get through this hurdle. I believe in the world sometimes. So we can get through it. Thank you, David, for coming on, being honest and open with us. That's all we can ever ask for, and spilling the tea on production and what that's all about. Yeah. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been great.
Absolutely. And thank you, listeners, as always, for tuning in. We hope you got some knowledge and inspiration. Thanks for listening to Femme Regard Podcast. If you like what you hear, tune in next time for more tips on the filmmaking business and insightful conversations with industry professionals over tea. We can only grow with your support, so please subscribe, share, rate, and give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast. If you leave us a great comment, we might give you a shout out on the show. For more on us, check us out at femregard.com.